Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here. Today, we're opening up a dark anthology of the unexplained. We're going to piece together the facts of 5 true crime mysteries that are just so bizarre and so full of strange anomalies they literally almost defy belief. It's a truly terrifying question, isn't it? What happens when the evidence leaves behind more questions than answers? Because honestly, sometimes reality is way more terrifying than fiction. I mean, what actually happens when students just vanish into thin air? Digital footprints are completely scrubbed clean, or evidence sits quietly in anonymous graves for decades. Looking at these gaps shows us exactly where our justice system hits its limits. Throughout this explainer, we're going to rely strictly on the documented facts you see on screen to try and piece together the unexplainable. So let's get into case number 1, the desert mystery of Adrian Salinas. Adrian was this 19-year-old college student at Gateway Community College with big dreams of becoming a journalist. But let's take a look at how incredibly fast her timeline escalates on the night of June 14th, 2013. At 2:30 a.m., she leaves a party to talk things over with her boyfriend. By 3 a.m., he drops her back at her apartment, but, she's determined to make things right. At 3:45 a.m., police get a call about a car driving erratically, and it's Adrian. She ends up crashing into a median and blowing out 2 tires. She manages to hobble this damaged car to a convenience store. Then, between 4:10 and 4:45 a.m., she desperately calls her boyfriend 11 times. 11 times. She even arranges a cab pickup. But when the cab actually gets there, Adrian is just gone. At 5:07 a.m., her phone powers down forever. For weeks, police combed through literally every inch of Tempe, and they found absolutely nothing. Then, nearly 2 whole months later, a property owner out near Apache Junction noticed vultures circling above the harsh desert landscape, and what he found were human remains, heavily exposed to the elements. DNA eventually confirmed it was Adrian, but the autopsy, totally inconclusive. The medical examiner couldn't determine the cause or the manner of death. The only thing police know for absolute certain is that her body had been moved and dumped in this remote location. The tragic likelihood here is that this was an opportunistic killing. I mean, think about it. Someone spotted a desperate 19-year-old out in a parking lot with a broken-down car in the middle of the night and offered her the ride she so desperately needed. Was it a stranger offering a ride or someone she actually knew? The terrifying reality we're left with is that whoever took Adrian is still out there, haunting everyone who knew her. Moving on to case number 2, the vanishing of Joshua Gaymond. Joshua was a 20-year-old pre-law student up at St. John's University in Minnesota back in November 2002. He was hanging out at a casual dorm poker party when he pulled an Irish exit right around 11:45 p.m. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer impossibility of what happens next. It was literally only a 3-minute walk back to his dorm, but he never made it. Yet, when police checked his computer, music was playing between 11:50 p.m. and 12:30 a.m., and more chillingly, tracks were being actively skipped. So, was Joshua in that room skipping songs, or was someone else sitting at his desk? Well, the mystery only deepens from here. Because his dorm room wasn't immediately sealed as a crime scene, anyone could have just walked in. And someone definitely did. Files were deleted, browser data was completely wiped clean. Plus, investigators discovered Joshua had been using a secret female persona online to converse with unknown men. Did he arrange a meeting? And adding to the dread, a month later, bloodhounds tracked his scent right to the bridge near Stump Lake. And here is a totally terrifying piece of context. Right around this same time, 3 other young men in nearby towns vanished under equally mysterious circumstances. Could it be a serial perpetrator? Dive teams searched the icy waters. The lakes on campus were literally lowered and dragged. But Joshua Gaymond never turned up, so we are just left with this agonizing trail of dead ends. Did he stumble into the murky, freezing depths of the lake? Or was he taken by a serial perpetrator who had done this before? We still have 0 definitive answers. All right, case number 3, the Klaus family's secret, a nightmare in Texas. In 1980, Dean and Tina Klaus vanished completely after moving from Florida to Texas with their baby daughter Holly. It wouldn't be until January of 1981 that the horrifying truth began to emerge. In the swampy woodlands north of Houston, a dog wandered out with a human arm clutched in its jaws. This macabre discovery led police to the remains of a male and a female. They had been brutally beaten, bound, gagged, and strangled. And for decades, they were simply known as the Harris County Does, buried in anonymous graves, their story just swallowed by time. 41. That is the exact number of years these 2 victims lay nameless in the earth. 41 years. Their families back in Florida had absolutely no idea Dean and Tina were already dead. It wasn't until 2021 that forensic genealogists using the GED Match database finally gave the Harris County does their names back: Harold Dean Klaus Jr. and Tina Gail Lynn Klaus. But of course, that left one burning question: where was baby Holly? Miraculously, in 2022, she was found. Holly Marie was 42 years old, living a totally normal life in Oklahoma, with absolutely no memory of her traumatic infancy. Investigators learned she had been left at an Arizona church by two barefoot women in white robes belonging to some sort of nomadic religious group. It is genuinely awe-inspiring that Holly survived and found a safe life. However, the horrifying puzzle still remains wide open. Who brutally murdered Dean and Tina Klaus? Let's shift gears to extreme wealth for case number 4, the Moosehead Brewery murder of Richard Oland. Richard Oland was a businessman worth nearly $37 million, part of the wildly successful family that owned Canada's iconic Moosehead Brewery. But on July 7, 2011, he was found face down in his office. So the crucial point is this number right here, 45. Richard suffered 45 savage blows to his head, neck, and hands. It was an incredibly brutal attack. Defensive wounds showed he fought desperately for his life. The office was literally so soaked in blood that it seeped through the floor to the ceiling below. Yet, incredibly, there was no murder weapon left behind. The police pretty quickly focused on someone close to home, Richard's youngest son, Dennis Oland, who was actually the last person to see him alive. The Crown's case leaned heavily on a strained father-son relationship and just 4 microscopic bloodstains on Dennis's jacket. And in 2015, in what became the longest and most expensive trial in New Brunswick's history, Dennis was convicted of second-degree murder. But the system had made errors. The conviction was overturned, and at a retrial in 2019, Dennis was totally acquitted. The retrial highlighted the complete lack of a murder weapon, new witness testimonies about strange sounds, and an unidentified man seen fleeing the area. So we are looking at a crime scene that was an absolute bloodbath. And despite millions of dollars spent and massive police resources deployed over nearly a decade, the true savage killer simply walked away. Who really killed Richard Oland? As of right now, no one knows. And that brings us to our final case, case number 5, the Christine Jessup case, a tragic injustice. On October 3, 1984, 9-year-old Christine Jessup vanished from her home in Ontario, where she had been left home alone. After 3 agonizing months of a frenzied town search, on December 31st, her brutally assaulted body was found in a desolate farmer's field 30 miles from her home. The grisly nature of the crime demanded justice. Desperate for an answer, authorities developed severe tunnel vision. They zeroed in on Guy Paul Morin, a quirky, soft-spoken 23-year-old neighbor who played the clarinet. Armed with pretty poor forensic science and witness misstatements, they put Morin on trial. Just look at this quote. "I know I didn't do it. I did not kill Christine Jessup." It's as simple as that. Read those words and imagine the profound anguish of a man basically screaming into a void. Despite being acquitted in his first trial, the Crown tried him again in 1992 and sentenced him to life in prison. For 10 long years, Morin suffered the unimaginable weight of being labeled a child killer. Finally, in 1995, advancements in DNA testing conclusively proved what he had been saying all along. He was 100% innocent. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of modern science to right the wrongs of the past. Fast forward to 2020. Genetic genealogy took that exact same crime scene DNA and finally linked it to the real killer, a man named Calvin Hoover. Now, Hoover wasn't a stranger. He was a trusted family friend who actually knew the family's plans that day. He even actively helped search for Christine in 1984 after he murdered her. The monster was hiding in plain sight the entire time, but he evaded justice, dying in 2015 and taking his dark secrets to the grave. DNA and modern forensics are absolutely incredible tools, finally bringing names to the nameless and truth to the wrongfully convicted. But looking at these 5 cases, we really have to ask ourselves, science is catching up, but how many monsters still walk among us, hiding in plain sight? How many unresolved shadows are still out there? Thank you so much for joining me for this structured explainer. Keep looking closely at the facts and never stop questioning the unknown.